Okay, guys, I am here with Iyanna Vaughn of Iyanna.co, and we are going to be talking all about diving into bookkeeping and pricing and all of this, pretty much the numbers that go behind your business. So, Iyanna, I am so excited that you are here. How are you?
I'm doing great. Thank you so much for having me, Jenny.
So excited. So, the first thing that I'd love to find out is a little bit about your background. What did you do previously before you had your online business?
Well, okay, so when I went to college, I had a degree in healthcare management. I had a background in working in the medical field. I could have sworn I was going to be a CFO at a hospital, but things didn't turn out like I had planned when I was in my about last year of college. Or a couple of years before I was ending, I had took an accounting class, and that was when I fell in love with accounting. And previously, I was working for an accounting firm a couple of years before, and I was like, wait, this is some of the stuff that kind of I was doing in a sense, but not necessarily all the way doing it. But it was like, okay, I love accounting, and my professor was like, you should change your major, and I was like, okay, maybe I'll change it to accounting. And then I got pregnant with my daughter, so things didn't happen the way I planned again. And when I graduated, I was sitting on my hands with the idea of going back to school for accounting. And then I started becoming a foster mom for special needs adults. So that's kind of like left field there.
Okay.
And in a sense, overnight, I became a mom of three. So it was like kind of stressful and everything. So then I wanted a creative outlet. So I started blogging. So when I started blogging, I saw women running their empires online. And I was like, wait, this is kind of what I want to do. I want to be someone who works online, but I was multi-passionate. But then I was like, wait, these women need someone to kind of help them with their finances. So that's when I started getting into bookkeeping. So I found a program that taught people how to do bookkeeping and how to do it for a business. And it was run by a CPA. So I completed the program in late 2015. And then in 2016, I was kind of going a little bit slow. But then when I started being more focused on my one thing that I was good at, that other people needed help in, that's when it was like, okay, things that are opening up for me.
I
I grew
love
my client. Yeah, thank you. I grew my client base. I grew confidence in what I was doing. And now I want to go ahead and pursue my business full time, as well as eventually go back to school for accounting to be a CPA.
Okay, very good. So now, how long were you working on the blog before you kind of felt that pull, that passion pivot that you needed to really focus in on your niche?
Um, it was early 2015, like around I think around like in January, February of 2015, I was very sporadic with my blogging, but I think I kind of got the creative itch out of me. I was like, okay, I needed to do something outside of, taking care of little people and, pretty much adults as well.
Yes.
So I just wanted to have a way to serve myself. And because I was always, serving other people. So now it's like, okay, let me do something for myself. And then when I opened my experience to different people who have, just bloggers and online business owners, I fell in love with it. I was like, yes, I'm going to help these women, make sure that they have financial education and help them with their bookkeeping and keep their finances organized.
Absolutely. So now, what would you say is the toughest part about being an entrepreneur?
The toughest part is actually starting something from scratch. Like you're starting your business with you don't have a team with you, because I would have never dreamed of being an entrepreneur. I thought it was something that wasn't feasible. I didn't have anyone who was around me that was an entrepreneur, no family members, no friends or anyone. So I didn't think that I would be someone to open a business, especially my personality type. I'm extremely introverted. And in 2016, it was a rough year for me and my family. And I went through some personal issues. And once my personal issues I was working on them, kind of not really dissolved, but kind of got better. That's when I stopped taking everything so personally in business. Because when you first open your business, you take everything personally. You think everyone is being condescending to you. You think that you just want to make the money, you want to be a little you're a little salesy at first, unfortunately, but it's like now you kind of grow into who is your who is your ideal client, and you grow in your confidence in yourself. So yeah, the hardest part is basically like starting from a bud and blossoming into an entrepreneur who has a sustainable business.
I love that. I can definitely see where I definitely felt like my business, it was my baby. It was.
Right.
Like you try not to take things personal when someone unsubscribes from your list, and you try not to take it personal when someone leaves a comment where you're like, yeah, that's not really very nice. But it is. It's very close to our hearts, I think, when we are doing this. And as women, we put emotion behind everything that we do.
Right.
So it's hard to like pull that part out. All right. So a large part of my audience is influencers and bloggers that are looking to pretty much turn their side hustle into a full-time profession. So let's talk about the finances piece of it. What is the key thing that what would be the first thing that you would tell people they need to do as far as having their own business?
The very first thing is, even if you don't have an LLC or which is like a business entity or anything like that, open a separate account just to see what's coming in from your endeavor. So say you do some sponsored posts or you get any compensation, you can have that separate from your personal finances so you can know what's actually coming in and what's actually going out for your endeavor or your blog or your business. That's the first thing that I would do, because when I first started my blog, I had a separate personal account, and it was very little that was coming in. But at least I kind of knew, okay, this is what was coming in and this is what was going out. Of course, you're funding your business with your personal, so you could transfer over a certain chunk or a certain amount over to that separate bank account. And you could say, hey, I funded my business this amount of money, and now when I make enough, I can pay myself back. So everything has a paper trail, because you could spiral into a whole full-fledged business, and next thing you know, everything is commingled and you have a mess to untangle by the time tax season comes. So
no personal experience from that whatsoever, of course. Yeah. So for those that don't know, that are not part of my membership site, Iyanna is my bookkeeper. And when I first approached Iyanna, it was right before the new year, where I knew tax season was coming, and I was freaking out. And I think I burst into tears in the middle of the first interview. And she was like, okay, we need to schedule an appointment, like an hour, like in 2 hours, I'm free. Like, let's get on the phone. So definitely, it made such a huge difference to have the two separated accounts, because we're able to see exactly what's coming in and what's coming out.
Right.
So now, one of the things that you've really taught me is about seeing that profit and loss statement. If someone was going to be doing something for themselves, what should they be looking for? As far as what numbers are they looking at? The money coming in? Are they looking at what should they be keeping track of?
Well, the P&L is just a smidget of, well, it's a big piece of how your business is doing financially, but I say the whole P&L is your whole financial picture. As far as like what's coming in, you see exactly your different streams. I know when I see some P&Ls, which is a profit and loss statement, I see just one line item for sales, but that doesn't cut it for online business owners, because we have multiple streams of income. So one thing that we did was separate your different streams of income, see what's doing the best for you, see where we could kind of say, okay, what happened this month that didn't hit that same mark as it did the last month. And we can say, okay, now we can say, okay, this particular income stream will be more, while the other one is a little bit down, because you're putting more effort into one particular stream than another, which makes sense. So then the next thing we go over is your operating expenses, which is how you operate your business. We look at your team members. Are your team members pulling that weight that you need them to do? And of course they are, because you're growing and everything. So we look at your team members. I'm not an advocate for cutting down costs for team members, because I think they're very valuable, but definitely understanding what part they play in your business. And then everything else, like your ads, your software subscription, that's a major one. A lot of online entrepreneurs think it's so easy just to sign up for the next software subscription, and then next thing you know, you're paying over $100 when like every month on something that you don't use. So I like to say, okay, let's not, let's kind of cut this out. If we're not using it, we go over every single one and say, okay, are we using it? Is it good for you? Are we going to keep it? If not, let's send an email and even see if we can get a refund if you haven't used it for months. And then we also, another big thing that online entrepreneurs do is buy every single course. And that's something that I had experienced too. Like in my first year too, I had FOMO, fear of missing out on the latest course.
Yes.
So what we did was say, if we are going to buy a course, I'm going to keep you accountable. Is it for your specific need in this quarter? Are you going to implement it in your business soon? So those are the kind of the things that we kind of go over. And then the bottom line, which is your net profit. That is how much money is left over after something comes in, everything goes out, and your net profit is kind of where you can pay yourself in your business.
Okay.
And then, sorry. Just to add a little bit more.
Yes.
It's also cash management is huge when it comes to online business owners, because you could be profitable on your P&L, but do you have cash is another thing that we kind of go into. So, yeah.
Now, where do taxes come into that? What would you recommend putting aside for taxes each month? What percentage?
Yeah, so what we do 15% of sales, but you could also do 30% of the bottom line, that net profit. We put over the 15% of sales over to your tax savings account, and we put that over so that we're not worried about it when tax season does come. And if your accountant thinks that you should do quarterly tax payments and that's something separate, you should talk to your accounting with. But just having it over on a separate tax savings account every time we look at your stuff monthly is definitely going to save you the anxiety of having to scrounge up a bunch of money at one time. So
yes, it definitely took some of the pressure off, because that was my biggest fear when I came to you, is I'm going to owe all of this money. I have no idea how much it's going to be. And I think having that set aside just makes life so much easier.
Exactly.
So now, one of the things that I think that a lot of us kind of feel like is we see the income coming in and we feel like, okay, well, how do we pay ourselves? And obviously it can be different depending upon what type of business you have, if an LLC or an S Corp. But is there a certain like percentage that we should be taking? I mean, there's all these different, what's the book? I know you recommended a book for me. Profit First.
Profit First. Yeah. So I suggest a lot of everyone who, we could probably link in the show notes, but just Profit First is a very good book to start out with when you want to be profitable in your business. So the mantra on Profit First is making sure that you have something you put something over for taxes, 15% of sales, 50% of that goes to your paying yourself. And then there's also 50% of profit, and then the 20% of expenses. We haven't gone through it fully with you and I, but we definitely started with the tax savings, and we're starting with you paying yourself, and then we kind of maneuver and kind of get a little bit more crystallized in how we allocate your funds, or kind of put certain items to what's coming in. Yes. So definitely read the book Profit First. Again, I'm not an accountant, but I definitely like to kind of implement some processes that makes it a little bit easier. So if you put a percentage on something that's coming in, it's a little bit easier than kind of guessing what you need to pay yourself and guessing what you should spend or guessing what you should put to taxes. So definitely check that book out and see how that can work for your business. You don't have to be strict at first, but make it work in a sense. Even if it's 10% for now for taxes, at least it's something. Right. And then you can talk to your accountant and see what exactly you need for tax savings.
So you touched on the idea of purchasing courses and investing in your business. Is there a time where you feel like there is a time to start investing, finding different ways to increase revenue, whether it's adding Facebook ads to your business plan, or if it's investing in a course? When do you think is the right time to do those sorts of things?
Now I'll speak from personal. So, yes. So I want to get a little bit into Facebook ads. Now, what I could start doing, so say you have a specific want that you have, or a specific need to kind of scale your business, you could even open another savings account or checking account to put a little bit over into that every single month. Or you could say, okay, I'm not going to take this much of a salary this month because now I want to kind of pay for my Facebook ads. Just kind of play it by what your need is for that month. That's why it's so important to look at your finances every single month to make sure that you're keeping on top of it. And if you do need those changes, you can make informed decisions on what your next step is. So a lot of times if you run a lean business, if you have low expenses, you can afford to every quarter kind of buy a course that specifically deals with what you want to accomplish that next quarter. So when you have your course for dealing with brands, so a blogger wants to get some sponsorships or get deals with brands, they can put in, okay, so this month I want to buy this course, but by that next quarter, I want to actually do the work and pitch those brands based on what I've been implementing. So kind of, you just got to be accountable for what you're buying, use it thoroughly, and probably buy like one thing at a time. I think like focus on that one goal. Like a lot of people do the 12-week sprints. Maybe on this 12-week sprint, I could hone in on working with brands or pitching to brands so that I can make that money back that next quarter for what I've invested in my business.
Yes. I love that you're saying to put a goal on it, and by being
right.
You're holding yourself accountable, but
right.
also putting a number on it. And I think that is the case a lot of times when you're talking about these courses. Well, am I going to see the return on it? And
right.
I think that is like a lot of times one of the conversations that I've been having on my membership site is that we feel like we have so much on our plate. Well, where do we put our focus? And I think knowing that you can put your focus into something and actually see money coming in can be key, so that you can then turn towards something else and be able to continue to grow, whether it's hiring a team member or taking another course, whatever it might be.
Right. And just to piggyback off of team members, there's two different ways that I think about team members. And one way is if you have services, does that team member help you produce the services for your clients versus does that team member help you with the operations of your business, like social media management, blog content management, and so forth. So when you think of those two different things, you can say, okay, the ones that do help you with client work is like a direct cost So that cuts into how much you pay yourself versus your team member who helps you with kind of the sales and operations cuts into your expenses. What do you have to make to be able to stay within that line of your expenses so that you can afford to have a team member? And before you even think about having a team member, you have to have a process. That's another thing where I kind of fell short with my processes because I had hired a little bit too soon for something, and it was all my fault because I took that responsibility as a business owner. You have to take that responsibility.
Yes.
Of you not setting that specific procedure and having the time to hire slowly and then have somebody get in the groove of how your system works. And without a system, you're wasting money, you're wasting people's time. So definitely have that process, kind of think about which type of team member you want, and then set your goal of what your revenue should look like in order to be able to afford that. And you could even do automation, have software subscriptions that you're going to use that can automate your process a little bit before you have, someone who's coming in. So that's going to cost a little bit more. So, yeah.
Right. No, absolutely. So it's funny that you mentioned software because that's where I wanted to go next with you. Is there software out there that can kind of help us regulate our finances, that can help us keep track of things, or can we just do it manually? What would you recommend?
I definitely recommend software to handle your finances. For people who are just starting out, definitely Wave is actually free. If you're just starting out, like how I said, when you open your separate account, open a Wave account around the same time so that you can keep track of what's coming in, what's going out. And then if you have a more robust business that you're pulling in revenue every single month and you have intricate amount of expenses and you have grown, then definitely Xero. That's where I have all of my clients on right now. And Xero is really good. It's really user friendly. A lot of times people think that QuickBooks Online is a little bit scary doing it themselves.
Right.
So definitely Xero is somewhere that it's robust. but it's user friendly at the same time, in my opinion.
Well, that's always a good thing, because I think the tech side often, well, at least for me, scares me, because that's where I get like, I don't want to waste time using something that's supposed to be saving me time, because I have to learn this intricate system. So that's good to know. Perfect.
Right.
Okay, very good. So now, as a bookkeeper, so when do you feel people are ready to possibly hire a bookkeeper within their business? When's the right time to kind of make that leap? I think I waited a little bit too long, and that was part of the reason there were tears when I got you on the first call. So when would you recommend?
I usually say when there's a couple different things. So one, for monthly work. So say you make around so you make at least $70,000 in revenues and you don't have the time, you could definitely afford at that point to have someone monthly, or say that you don't have that much revenue coming in yearly, you could definitely afford to have someone come in and train you on how to do it properly, and come in quarterly, every quarter, to kind of make sure that you're doing the work, make sure that you're following the process, and making sure that you're keeping up with your books. So, or if you feel like you are just so scared and you can't and you feel like you that you need that person, you just have to understand that you're going to have to pay a little bit more than than what your revenue kind of makes room for, until you make that leap and kind of increase your revenue. So say if someone just starting out, I wouldn't recommend you having a bookkeeper.
Okay.
Definitely getting on the phone with someone for like a strategy session, seeing how you can price your services for profit, and seeing kind of what that looks like, then that could be a great investment for you to do. And then following up that next quarter and saying, hey, this is what's going on. This is what's happening. And someone to keep you accountable for that quarter, so that you're not going to the wayside and, spiraling into, okay, what is my finances looking like? So, yeah.
Okay, so I'm glad that you just actually touched on your pricing, because pricing, I feel like, is such a huge question that ends up coming up, because people feel like it's not talked about. Well, someone's paid you, someone's experience. Help us out. What do we do?
So I like to reverse engineer my pricing to what do I ultimately want to make. And that could be, okay, so obviously I'm not going to be making, for me in my business, I'm not going to be making like $15,000 a month. But what I could do is aim to make, let's say I want to do $4,000 for the month. I could reverse engineer that to what I want to bring in. So then I'll multiply that by 2. And that's kind of what I need to bring in for my business. And then now this is so say 8,000 is the times 4,000 times 2. So I have the 8,000 that I want for my business. So then I want to think, how, if I'm a service-based business, how many clients do I have to take on to satisfy this income goal for the month? And then say, okay, I have one tier, which is my smaller price, if I can accept a little bit more people, and then I have a mid tier, which is a little bit more, and it's like kind of a little bit more than what my smallest tier was, but it's something that could bring in a lot of bucks. Right. And then my biggest tier, which is like my VIP person, or someone who could probably take on 1 or 2 people in that tier, and just kind of engineer that into how many hours I spend with that person. So I do have a pricing calculator that kind of goes over how to price your services for profit, and so it kind of helps you know how many people to take on at that price, how much each person is making you on average, how much you're making on the hour, because I like value-based pricing, but I also don't want to make peanuts on the hour. So it's like kind of like that middle of like making sure that you make some like enough an hour, and making sure that you're pricing your services for value. So yeah, and also when people say price what you're worth, it's kind of hard when you're starting out, because you don't know what you're worth. So if you reverse engineer what you want to make, then that could you could base it off that. And then if you do get that experience, then buff it up to your value. So that's
Now, do you also recommend using like what the market can hold or what the market value is for like a service like coaching or consulting or something like that?
Um, to a certain extent,
Okay.
because when I first started my business, one another thing that kind of stagnated me from growing was looking out at everyone who is a bookkeeper, and it kind of froze me into like, okay, what should I price? Am I pricing too low? Am I pricing too high? You could start out by just briefly looking at the market value of what you're offering, but then that's cut that out afterwards. Stop that and then go into what you would like to price your services.
Okay.
That's what I
Perfect.
believe
Okay,
personally.
that makes sense because one of the things too, as you know, I actually met you in Atlanta in person because I was down there for the business boutique, and Christy Wright was actually talking about the whole pricing your services, and she gave this adorable example of
Mm-hmm.
how one of the people that she worked with wanted to get paid like $50 an hour, and she was saying how she creates purses and she wanted to get paid $50 an hour, but it takes her 6 hours to create one purse. So
Mm-hmm.
she turned and said, well, Christy, I want to get paid $50 an hour. So do you think people would pay $300 for a handmade purse? And Christy kind of looked at him and was like, yeah, not unless your name is Michael Kors. So I think that that's hard often it's difficult for us to kind of put a price on it. How much time are we putting into it? And
Mm-hmm.
also take into account the market value and not like underprice so much.
Right,
Because I
right,
think, especially like I do have some listeners that are Etsy owners and they'll go on Etsy and look and see, well, I have a similar product. And
right,
they'll look at it and I've had them come back to me and say, there's no way that girl is making any money. Like, there's no way to make a profit. I know how much her supplies cost. I know how much time it takes.
right,
There's no
right,
profit in that. Um,
right.
so I think it can be something that's really difficult, but I'm very excited about being able to use your pricing calculator. And that's something that will be in the show notes so that my audience can actually hop on over and be able to put their numbers in and be able to kind of figure out like what should you be charging.
Right, right.
So
Yeah.
go ahead. Sorry.
Okay. I was just thinking about I kind of lost my train of thought
You're
for a
fine.
second. But what were you gonna say? I think I'll remember
Yeah,
once
no,
you.
no. So you're in the middle of working on something right now. What is it that you're putting together that you have up and coming?
Yeah, so I've been listening to my lovely clients. You guys been telling me to kind of do some kind of consulting on the side. So, but I wanted to offer another free offering for kind of how to diagnose your business, your finances in your business. It's going to be called the Money Mastery Agenda. So we'll go over it. It'll have everything that I go over with you guys as clients, just kind of running through your profit and loss statement, your balance sheet, kind of cash flows, and kind of understanding what like a budget and stuff. So it's kind of like hitting those certain marks, and you can have a dialogue with yourself or with your own bookkeeper or with anyone on your team, just to make sure that you're following along with the process and you kind of are keeping up with your finances. So yeah, that's what I'm working on. And if you do need someone to kind of talk through with your finances, who's I'm not judgy at all. I've seen it all. I've been through a lot. And so if you feel like you need someone to kind of say, can you just talk to me for a couple of minutes, and I'll be happy to help. And if I also have some strategy sessions where I'll give you actionable advice on kind of what to do next, and kind of go over with you how to price your services for profit. So
Yes,
just
and
kind of that tidbit.
that was how we started. We did the strategy session. I burst into tears, and you said, "Yep, we're going to get you started in like 2 hours. So let's get moving here."
Right.
And I am that very needy person that needs to go through and have that one-on-one and be able to look at the
Right.
budget and be able to put everything. Because when it comes to money, it does. It scares me. It overwhelms me, especially as the business continues to grow, and I'm now responsible for other team members and other people's employment.
Right.
So
Right.
it's a
Right.
very scary thing, and I appreciate you beyond belief. So,
Thank you.
one of the questions that I always ask people that I interview are their projections for 2017. What do they see up and coming, whether it's in social media, whether just online businesses in general? What do you see coming up?
For the industry, right?
Yes.
Okay. That's a good question.
Nothing like putting you on the spot, right? I always have a
Right,
tendency of doing that. That and forcing you to do things you don't want to do, like put together courses and things of that nature. I'm well known for that.
Let's see. I'm thinking that the industry is going to lean more towards us kind of sticking up for ourselves because I see a lot of times big industries taking advantage of bloggers or small business owners. And I could see us sticking up for ourselves and what we offer and bring to the table. And I would hope to see definitely camaraderie with the online industry and kind of working together, not really against anyone in per se, but kind of sticking up for ourselves as far as like making sure that we get those contracts signed, we get that payment from the big brands, and making, because I just woke up to a hashtag of freelancers who aren't getting paid by a magazine. So it's like, yeah, we're taking a stance on how we feel about what we do. We're putting our mark on the value of online business and what we do, and I could see us sticking up for ourselves a little bit more. So that's kind of what I see.
I love that. And I think too, as small business owners, like that is a necessary step of what we have to do. And I think sometimes, and I hate to go back to it, but as women, we feel like we're being bossy and we're out of line by doing it, when in reality, it's part of what we need to be doing for our businesses.
Exactly.
So that is perfect. Well, Iyanna, thank you so much for taking the time to speak with us. Everyone, make sure that you hop over and try out her price calculator, and definitely, I would highly recommend booking a strategy session. So thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Of course.